If your super rich boss invited you to his private mansion for a week, would you go? I probably would, until I realized that there's no self-service, and that's how horror movies usually begin. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite movies ever, Ex Machina. Now, Ex Machina is a 2014 sci-fi thriller written and directed by Alex Garland and stars Domhnall Gleeson, I think I botched that, as Caleb, Oscar Isaac as Nathan, Alicia Vikander as Ava, and Sonoya Mizuno as Kyoko. Now, when people hear AI movies, they usually expect killer robots, lasers, or the world coming to an end. That's not this movie though. See, this movie is much more quieter, and which is why I love it so much. It's mostly people just sitting in rooms talking. Yet somehow, it's still one of the most intense sci-fi movies ever made. Here's why. See, before we get into the plot, let's discuss AI real quick. Today, we use AI all the time. And if you say that you don't, you're lying, because it's like everywhere now. We ask it questions, we let it help us write things, and we use it to make pictures and videos. In fact, AI has gotten so advanced nowadays that there are times you'll see a video on TikTok or Instagram and you'll swear that it's real. You know, like you see a realistic person, a realistic woman or man or animal, anything that it's real, which is crazy. Anyways, but the AI that we have seen today doesn't actually think like a person, right? It doesn't have dreams. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't wake up and decide what it wants to do. Someone's still somewhat programming it. But imagine someone actually built an AI that could do all that stuff. That doesn't need any program. Enter Ava. Now, Nathan, played by Oscar Isaac, believes that she's the first machine that's truly alive. She could learn, she can have real conversations, she understands people's feelings, she flirts, and she makes her own choices. And that's what makes her different. She isn't just answering questions, Ava is thinking. So the movie starts with Caleb, the programmer who works for Nathan's giant tech company called Blue Book. And after winning some contests, right, Caleb gets invited to Nathan's private research home in the mountains, And yeah, it's just them, it's just Nathan's home in the mountains and nothing else. At first, it sounds like the best work trip ever. Free vacation, private mansion, and a billionaire boss. Then Nathan, by the way, Oscar Isaac killed this. Like, he was the best part in this whole movie. I mean, Caleb did great, Ava did great, but in my opinion, Nathan, that character, like Oscar Isaac, I think he was born to play it. He absolutely killed this role. He was amazing. The guy carried the movie. I'm sorry, like some people might not agree with me, but he carried this whole movie. So anyways, Nathan wants Caleb to spend a week talking to Ava to see if she really feels like a real person. And here's where things get interesting. See, the thing is, Caleb already knows that Ava is a robot. Like he can literally see the metal inside her body. So the test isn't whether Ava can pretend to be human. The test is, can she make Caleb care about her? Now Caleb, is a interesting character. He's very likable. He's smart, and he doesn't act like a know-it-all, unlike Nathan. He's shy, he's a little bit awkward, and honestly, he's just an awesome guy. He seems like a good guy. And truth be told, he would act like the same way most of us would. He acted the same way most of us would in this situation. You know, and the more Caleb talks to Ava, the more he starts to believe that she's trapped. And Caleb, being the good guy he is, he wants to help her get free, right? But the whole time, we're sitting there watching. I'm watching, right? And things start to change. The whole narrative of the movie just like shift. So, see, I'm wondering, right? If I'm watching this in theaters, which I did back then, but I'm wondering, is Caleb helping Ava, or is Ava slowly getting Caleb to do exactly what she wants? So, and again, y'all, Oscar Isaac, like, look, the guy was amazing in this movie. Kind of creepy at one point. 1 minute he's talking about building the future, and the next minute he's drinking vodka at breakfast, like it's orange juice. Then he starts dancing out of nowhere. The guy was great. But yeah, so he's one of those people in this movie that they think that they're so smart that rules don't apply to them. He thinks he can get away with anything because he's a genius. He believes that he can create life and then control it forever. Turns out in this movie, that's not how things work. And unfortunately, our boy Nathan learns that the hard way. And so the character of Ava, back to her. And look, I know I kept saying how amazing Oscar was in this movie, but Alicia Vikander also gave an amazing performance. One of her best. In fact, truth be told, I think this is the only thing I actually recognize her by. I know she did a couple small things after this and before this, but I mostly know her for this. So the character of Ava, even though her body is made of this glass metal thing, she feels more human than some actual people. Ava asks questions. She smiles. She gets nervous. She makes you want to trust her. And the thing is, that's the scary part, right? So, and back to what I was saying before, like, does she really like Caleb, or is she just trying to get Caleb to do things for her so she could leave? Like, is she scared, or is she just 10 steps ahead of everyone? So, and the movie never truly gives you a clear answer. Like, we never knew where her attention was, and I loved that. I freaking loved it. Now Kyoko is another robot. She don't talk much. In fact, at first she seems like the maid or an assistant, right? But it turns out she's just another robot. And so this blew my mind. This shows that Nathan has been making robots all along, like way before Ava. And this shows how badly he treats them. In fact, in one scene, and like, I don't mean to spoil it, like, he ripped Ava's drawing. Like, she drew a picture of something, I think it was Caleb or something like that, but he ripped it, right? And then in one scene, the Kyoko spilled wine on Caleb, I think, and Nathan just snaps and call her dumb or whatever. Like, it shows that he's been mean or just nasty to these robots. And but he's done a little bit more. Hey, go watch the movie and watch how Nathan treats his robots. But yeah, so this guy's been making these things all along, and Ava is not the first one. See, and this movie's so good to me because it's never rushed. There's almost no action. There's no huge fight scenes. The only fight scene is really towards the ending, where, like, I guess all of them got into like this big fight. But, well, really Ava, Kyoko, and Nathan. But even that was like 2 minutes tops. So yeah, there's no giant cities getting blown up or giant explosions or whatever. Nothing crazy. Just conversations, but every single conversation feels like a game of chess. You know, someone is always hiding something. Someone's always trying to stay one step ahead. And every time you think you figure things out, in this movie, it surprises you. So one of the best movies ever. If you have not seen it, go watch it. At the end, again, spoiler alert, Ava does escape. She and Kyoko does stop Nathan. He had a bad day. They stopped them big time. And Caleb is trapped in some type of chamber that Ava put him in, which back to the first question, does she really care about Caleb, or is she just trying to escape? And she was only trying to escape. Now there is no confirmation that Caleb died, but I think he did because Nathan's dead. They kill him, and who's gonna get Caleb at the chamber? I mean, at the end, Ava left the island, right? There's no one in the mansion but Nathan and Kyoko, and that's what's for them. But I'm pretty sure in the end, Nathan Caleb either starved to death or died of thirst or something, So, but yeah, he's still locked into the chamber or the room, and yeah, and she just left. The ending was just jaw dropping. I didn't see it coming. I honestly thought that it was gonna be like some cringy love story, right, where both both Caleb and Ava escaped together, right? But no, no, she had her own intentions all along. And yeah, and Nathan was right, and at one point, like him or not, in the movie, Nathan was right. In fact, at one point he mentioned something like that to Caleb. He said, hey, does she really like you, or is she trying to escape? So, but yeah, and Ava also never promised that she loved Caleb. She never said that. She never promised, despite her flirting with him and being all cute, whatever. She never said that she liked him or cared about him. So all she wanted was her freedom. I mean, the ending is cold. It's kind of sad, but it also makes you wonder, if a human being did the same thing and try to escape the same way, would we judge them the same way? But anyways, that's my final thoughts. This is again one of my favorite movies ever made. It lets you figure things out on your own. The acting was amazing. The script was amazing. Awesome visuals. I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. If you feel otherwise, let me know in a comment. And also, if you like this a video, like and subscribe. And yeah, and thanks y'all, and thanks for watching, and peace. Have a good one.